Tam- Tammy Joe, would you like to give our prayer?
Yes. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for this opportunity that we have to be able to um, work together as women in this covenant Christian movement. We are so grateful, Father, that you have named us and also counseled us and corrected us. We are endeavoring to have your love, your light, your truth with us this evening. Help us to be receptive to the Spirit, to be able to trust our instinct, our intuition, and the inspiration that comes. Father, we understand that your will is that we lay down our contentions and our strive and to be of one heart. And as I've been pondering on this and why you want this, there seems to be some sort of blessing attached to it. And I'm hoping that with that blessing, that we grow fast together, that we can accomplish greater things, that we can be of service and bless each other, and that so many wonderful things that we have yet to receive can be revealed to us. And that is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
What a wonderful prayer. Thank you. That was awesome. All right. Sorry, I'm not very settled here. So, just in case anyone hasn't been to the last couple of meetings, these meetings have been, we've just had a couple, I think two others since the April 12th conference. And they're just a discussion place, just a place to kind of go over women's conference and women's council ideas before we head into the November conference vote and the vote at the end of this month. So it doesn't matter what your opinions are. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're alone. This is exactly where I think you should be. And I welcome you here. If we have differing opinions, I don't have animosity for you. I'm really grateful for everyone that's shown up tonight and excited to collaborate together because I really do believe that we can connect and come together as women about these topics and anything else that's going to be facing us in the future. So, someone just asked in the chat, what is the vote at the end of this month for? And I think I should just switch over to Cami. Cami, do you want to answer that?
Yes, you can hear me. Yeah, okay. Um, I was just looking for the link. I'll go ahead and post the link to the website in the chat right now. Basically, the vote, I was looking at the questions, whatever, and we've got two distinct sets of questions. One is about the conferences themselves. The other set is about how to conduct councils. So I figured we should vote on the conferences first, whether we can do certain things, who's invited, all that kind of stuff. Then for November, which is kind of the finishing of the continuation from last November. So last November, we had a women's conference and we said we were going to postpone for a year. So that's what this is. And then the November vote will be, like I said, it'll be about the councils and it will be finishing up this year. Did that make sense?
So, yeah, that's the June vote. in the November vote. If anyone else has questions about that, feel free to ask. And I don't know what you guys really want to discuss in this meeting tonight, but it's just the floor is yours. Anyone feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself and start asking questions or bringing up different thoughts. So Sky says, I'm still unclear what the vote at the end of June is for. I don't know if you want to clarify more, Cami, or I can try to explain my view.
Just occurred to me I'm still unmuted. How about Sky, can you ask another question?
Go for it, Sky.
Hi. So I look like crap, but that's okay. Um, so are you asking me to clarify my question or skip over my question?
I was asking for clarification. I'm not quite sure what it is you're not clear on.
So when you're saying voting at the end of June about the conference that's coming up in November, like what is the question of the vote at the end of June? Like we vote to blank, we vote, or like vote yes for blank, vote no for blank. What is the blank that you're voting on?
You're still muted, by the way, Cami.
Okay, I changed the questions a little bit. So what I did was I actually, okay, so I might as well go ahead and tell everyone right now. I went ahead and put up a vote. I decided instead of having people email their votes into me, and it looks like somebody did post it in there. Perfect. Um, anyway, so instead of having everyone email me votes, which then I would tabulate by hand, I put up a Google Doc vote, and there wasn't any way to like schedule when it was live. So it's live now. If anybody wants to go and vote on these questions now, the questions themselves are the same as what's been posted there and what's on the website. I kind of reorganized them a little bit, but they're the same questions. And then I clarified a little bit because the more I've thought about it, the more it's occurred to me that if we don't decide yes on the binding question, which for some people that's an issue, for other people's it's not. But basically the question is, are we bound by the results of these or the votes of these conferences? So if we decide that the answer is no, to me, I just don't see any reason to keep on voting. I mean, why vote on things if we're not going to agree to them? And then also, in my mind, that also invalidates the past two conference votes because again, we're now saying we don't agree to this. So I clarified that on the vote, like the Google Doc where we vote. Other than that, it's basically the same questions. So questions about that?
Where can I find the questions that you're referencing and the website? What website is it? Could you put it in the chat so I can go to it?
Just for the recording also, so the website is in the chat, and then I'm just going to read the questions aloud really quick, if that's all right. So these are the proposals for the vote. Or Cami, since you said you reworded them, do you want to read them aloud? Would it be all right if we just read those out loud so that they're also in this Zoom recording?
I can read them. And mostly I reordered them, but okay, so the first one is, are the votes binding? And then 51% to pass. And then I put a note on there, if this does not pass all past votes conferences, the rest of these questions and the fall conference are all invalidated and there will be no more voting for the 2025 Women's Summit or Conference. And again, if anybody has any issues with this, let me know. To me, this just seems obvious, but if I'm wrong, let me know. Then the second question is, can a conference be called to overturn a women's council? Note, if no, we will discuss what should be done in the second half of the fall summit. In other words, this is the only question for now, but if we say no here, we are going to keep discussing this and come up with a solution. Third question is, the conference must allow all women who want to attend the ability to do so in real time via Zoom, etc. Yes, no. The conference, fourth question and last question, the conference must allow all women that want to vote the ability to do so. Again, yes, no. So those are the 4 questions that we currently have. And I'm open to other questions or rewording or whatever. Just let me know.
Cami, is it possible? So Amy has posted the way you worded them before, and I'm a very visual person. And so as you're reading it, it would help me a lot. Is there any way that we can have how you just read it over in the chat so that those of us that are visual, we can see it?
Yes, I'm doing that right now. I did this vote literally about half an hour ago, so I'm still kind of sorting everything out. But yeah, I'll go ahead and put those in the chat right now.
Sorry, maybe other people aren't as, I have to hear and see at the same time.
Amy, is that the website? Is that where you have that?
So it was linked from her website, the June, so the happyvalleybuilders.com.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Can I interject or say something? I don't know if we're got to raise our hand or what, but Heidi's iPhone on the chat is expressing exactly what my thought was, just as I've been looking at it, is my concern, like you all probably read what I've already said. I agree with, Cami, I'm in your camp as far as your thought processes of what you feel has been right or wrong, but like I said, I don't even know if I feel like, despite the fact that I get frustrated with what happened, that I still want to make a rule about it. But let's just say that we voted on this. I'm concerned about not doing this vote in an actual conference. I'm concerned about saying, hey, we're last week of June, we're doing a conference, because I just don't feel like we've even had the necessary discussion. And today I was looking at, I asked Lori Larson for her link to her conference coming up in the end of August. And as I was reading that again, that, she's going to have a 2-hour discussion or opportunity for women to get together and talk. And I kind of felt like we just need a little bit more time to even talk to be able to vote on those questions. And so I'm just wondering, can we vote on those at the beginning of the November conference? Is that a possibility, or is that just an unreasonable thought?
Well, as far as I have seen, there's basically been no conversation or very little conversation going on either the Slack or the email. And I'm not sure that putting the vote out is going to really change that. I think until we're right down at the wire, we're just not going to talk about it. I mean, that's what I've been seeing, is that we didn't want to talk about it after the fall conference. We in fact voted not to have a place to talk about it. And then when the April 12th conference was called, suddenly everybody was excited and want to talk about it. I mean, excited and not necessarily in a positive way, but it feels to me like the reason that we're not talking about it is because we don't want to, and we're going to keep postponing it. So, I mean, yeah, we could do that, but also if we vote against binding, we invalidate everything. So it's going to be a lot of work for nothing, I think. So, I mean, what do you think?
I think that the fear that we might vote against the binding, I personally find that hard to believe since the Lord pretty much said in in the thing that, it was him that said the 51. So personally, I'm going to be shocked if we vote and say things aren't binding. Maybe we will, and that's fine. I mean, if that's what the people vote, I'm even okay with the fact that, look, one of the things we got in trouble about on the guidance standard, which I don't actually really agree, but we got in trouble that like somehow we're in some sort of rush. Although the Lord said it was an easy thing, but then we kind of got in trouble that, wow, this could have taken years. So part of me is like, all right, we have set the April, or not April, but November is a conference. I felt blindsided by the April one because none of us was anticipating it, and it felt like an opportunity to just, prosecute a bunch of women for an agenda. So that was my issue with that one. But everybody's known about this November one, and I don't I don't think it's I don't think it's a bad idea to just say, even if it's just a few people that keep getting on that want to talk about it. I don't think there needs to be a feeling of rush. I think it's okay if we said, we will vote on these questions and maybe they'll be even tweaked some more. Because part of me, like I said, I agree with, I don't want conferences to be used the way they were used, but I don't know necessarily that I want to vote and say they cannot be either. But, so there may be some additional way that we word it, but I just think it's going to go over a lot better with all of the women in general, probably with the Lord. I would say definitely with Denver and Stephanie, if we don't push things as if we're acting in haste, and that we really can show that we allowed every opportunity for as many women as they wanted to participate. And if we can show, look, we held these every, month, we offered this and this and this, and we did it since the April conference, we've allowed this opportunity. I just don't see any harm in that. And the same questions can be answered. And since you're in control of the conference, we know that this, it's the next one that's going to happen. We know that it's not going to be hijacked and turned into something contrary to what you're trying to lay out. And I just think it would give us more time for input. I'm sorry I rambled on that, but somebody else say something.
So it looks like we have some hands raised. I think Sky's hand was first. Go ahead, Sky.
I agree that kind of giving people an opportunity to think about things, reason together, try and understand opposing perspectives would be wise. And I don't think that this Zoom meeting has really reached that many people. I have contacted some people and they were not even aware that it was happening. And from some input that I have heard from a few people, there are those who are interested in continuing discussing these thoughts and ideas. And maybe if the invitation was extended to do that, and kind of question and explore and be curious about the Lord's definitions and what that means and what it doesn't mean, and referencing scriptures and trying to understand the spirit of the law and not come to conclusions and try and make things the letter of the law. I feel like that would be a good exercise for a lot of people. And I put an email together, a Gmail account with some folders I saw. Hold on one second. Let me go near the room. Whose website is the Build Zion? What is it? Let me see. I have it on my computer.
Happy Valley Zion Builders is Cammie's website. She's the one who's organizing the November conference.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're organizing the November conference that Stephanie's going to be there, and we're going to pick up where we left off last November. Is that right?
Cammie is. I'm just doing the Zoom meetings.
Oh, okay. But Cammie's the one talking,
Yes. Yeah,
correct?
that's me.
Okay. Yeah, I went to your website and I really liked a lot of the posts. And I can see that there are juxtapositions on things that Denver has said, or even some scriptures that I can see why people think and feel differently in different scenarios. And I think it would be worth our time to explore these things and try and understand the nuances and circumstances where some things might be appropriate and other things might be appropriate. And I agree it's not super black and white, but from the little bit of information that I understand, it seems premature to try and do a vote at the end of June, in my opinion.
Okay, so thank you, Sky. I haven't been thanking people for their comments. Thank you, everyone who's spoken so far. Next, we're going to go to Heidi, I'm pretty sure, but I just want to say really quick, and Sky, you didn't go over time. So this isn't to you or anyone in particular, but I forgot to mention at the beginning of the meeting, we kind of established what the how we would run these meetings by common consent in the first one in April, end of April. And so we decided, the women voted that we would have a 5-minute hard stop timer. And then after 3 minutes, a gentle reminder. So if you see Amy Kincaid's screen, if you just turn her screen on when you're the one talking, it'll have a timer set for you, and you can just watch to make sure you're not going over 5 minutes. Okay, Heidi, go for it.
Okay, I hope you guys can be patient with me. I'm solo parenting and wrangling a toddler into the bath while I speak, so bear with me. But yeah, my concern over this vote, I mean, these are huge questions, and a lot of them really are about whether we're going to comply with the Lord's revelation. I mean, if he says in the June 20th revelation that the votes taken at a women's conference are binding, then like that's it for me. They're binding. And so voting on whether or not we're going to accept direct instruction that the Lord gave us, that's a big deal to me. Some of these other questions, like, let's see, I'm pulling them back up. Yeah, the conference must allow all women that want to vote the ability to do so. Again, that's what the Lord said. Can a conference be called to overturn a women's council? That, to me, I think the Lord's revelation was intentionally ambiguous about that. That's my personal feeling. But like, for us to decide that is adding more beyond the instructions that the Lord gave us. I don't really feel inclined to vote yes or no to that. I don't know. The Lord didn't directly say anything about it, but I can understand how some people could interpret it that way. And so I just feel like taking this vote, especially when I think so many women are not plugged into this conversation right now, is really a big concern to me. And when the Lord in the June 20th revelation says that the vote of the women decides all matters raised, that's very specifically within the confines of a women's conference. He says, let the women call a conference, let Stephanie conduct the proceedings. Like, he gives this very specific set of instructions for how we're supposed to hold these conferences and hold these votes. And it's my opinion that the outcome of a vote that's taken separately from a conference may not actually be legitimate in that sense. And I think there's definitely the possibility for dispute of the validity of a vote that's taken months ahead of time and by potentially a much smaller group of people than we'll actually have at the women's conference in November. So anyway, just wanted to voice those concerns. I haven't honestly been plugged back into this very long, so I'm still getting caught up.
Thank you, Heidi. Next, we have Catherine.
I was unable to attend the June 2nd, but I just finished watching that last night, and a couple of things that was brought to my attention. First of all, I'm concerned about the November conference that was held. Bob and I were actually in the middle of his cancer journey before he died in May. And so I was not involved in that at all. And I'm trying to keep informed. I was able to be there at the last conference. Couple of concerns that I'm hearing, and I have similar concerns, is that if we're not physically present to be able to be part of this, because we are part of the community, and my main desire of all this is to come to know a lot more of you. I'm actually my only family fellowship without Bob here in Texas. So that's really important to be involved in these things, not just, you know, a network. I would appreciate more of a network. The other concerns I have is if I'm not physically present, I do want to be part of it and have that opportunity also. I think one of the things that I heard from the June 2nd when I was watching it is it's not a matter of we don't want to vote. It's a matter of how can this be more far-reaching to the women in the Covenant Sisters. Efforts have been made on email, efforts have been made on Slack. Some of us don't have access or visiting it frequently, both avenues. Ideas were given June 2nd about how we can be more far-reaching. But I believe also my husband, in one of his last things that he advised me is don't act in haste. And that's coming to mind even now. Don't act in haste. I think it's premature that it's been expressed. So my main concern is to be involved, even if I'm not physically present. There's been great efforts to reach other audiences, far-reaching, but it's not happening yet. Just because this is an effort that needs to build momentum to allow as many women to share their perspectives. I love what these Zoom meetings are trying to accomplish, that we're able to express ourselves and allow that to happen, because that was a main concern. Allowing people to govern themselves. And I've met so many beautiful hearts in you already and recognized through your communications too. And I'm not trying to, I admire a lot of you through a lot of your difficulties that you're going through. And I have such a desire to get to know more of you. Also, there was as an aside, Emlyn had asked if there would be an open mic or if it's the hand raising. And I don't know if that's been addressed yet, but that was what I remember from the recording from June 2nd too. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, that is something that was brought up last time that Emmeline said. And so if you guys would rather, I should have said that at the beginning of the meeting. We don't have to do hand raising. We can do an open mic. Just to be quick, if you want to just send your preference in the chat, just do like open mic in the chat or do hands in the chat, so we can get a tally on that if anyone has an opinion. Thank you for your comments, Catherine.
Well, since we have a little in the conversation, there are a couple of things that I wanted to correct. First of all, I keep hearing people talk about, Stephanie being involved and, and or the physical conference in the fall, and there is no physical conference in the fall. I need everybody to understand that there is no place, because we had so many people that were saying we can't come because we've already got the conference, which will be what, 2 months before whatever, the Boise conference, and they're saying we can't afford to come out, they're too close together, etc. So there is no physical conference being planned at this point. There's no venue, there's no nothing. So that's one thing. The other thing is that Stephanie is overseeing everything. She's got access to everything. So, I mean, in as much as one can be involved, she is involved. But uh, basically, I've heard a bunch of concerns, and since I'm in charge, but I'm not in charge. We're all a committee. You guys are all on the committee. So go ahead and tell me what you feel like we should do.
Go ahead, Karen. Thanks, Cami.
Okay. Cami, first off, I want to say thank you. You are doing a great job, and I hope you don't feel like you're getting attacked by all. You're doing what you're feeling to do, and I appreciate you being willing to take feedback and stuff like that. And for me, when I think about that, there's no venue for this November. That doesn't matter one iota to me. I think that's great. In fact, what a great precedent to start, because I really have been sensitive as being somebody who is on a very tight fixed income, and for the most part has been very far for the last few years, and has attended it is just a financial challenge to come. And I don't think ever participating in God's work, I just, how can we even be okay with limiting on that? I just really, really struggle with that. That money should never be a reason why somebody shouldn't attend. So the fact that it's not in a conference doesn't change to me that we've all known that there was going to be a conference in a year. We're all planning on it, and hallelujah that you're offering a way for every single person to attend. So as if you're saying, okay, we're included on the committee, then my vote would be, as I'm listening to most of the women that have said things, is let's hold off on what you're asking to vote for. And like I see some of the women, I think I would have to agree. I don't even know if that the one question where you're saying, can we try a women's council on it? I just don't know. I feel like if there's some ambiguity, leave it. That was my whole argument on the last council, was where the Lord left ambiguity, please, please don't try to define it. So if I'm going to stay consistent with what I said about home fellowships and what I said, then I'm going to try to live by principle, and that is, I feel like the Lord left that ambiguous. And that would probably be the way that I would try to persuade people in November to think. So if that becomes a vote, that would be probably how I would vote. But I just feel really strongly, and feel like what I'm hearing so far from most of the women is that they're saying, let's at least hold off on the voting that you're proposing until this November, and really allow us time to discuss it.
Thanks for your comments, Karen.
Can I
Okay,
speak?
so, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I personally don't feel like I have really grappled with a few things long enough. I'm not ready to make conclusions yet. I feel like a lot of people, are still kind of trying to digest some of the women's conference information and women councils and everything that's been going on the past couple months. If other people would be interested in having discussions, I think that that would be a good idea. If they want to do that here, that's awesome. I think it would be a good idea if there were multiple groups, multiple fellowships having conversations, coming up with different ideas and challenging our ideas and trying to understand where other people are coming from. So I am going to do that. And if there's anyone interested that would like to participate with me on that, let me know. And if others would like to vote and present what they think and feel in November, I think that's fine too. But I do really think that trying to reason together and understand each other would be a really good idea right now.
Thanks, Sky. Cami, did you want to make your comment as well?
Yeah, I'll go ahead then. The question for me is, what then prevents us from continuing to postpone? And the reason I'm saying that is because this vote was announced 2 months ago. And like I said, it's been fairly silent on the Slack groups and the email groups. There's been a little bit of discussion. But I feel like we all have very busy lives. And I think honestly, just having a deadline forces us to engage in things. And so if we decide we want to postpone, we'll postpone. But the reason I'm arguing against that is because, first of all, we have 4 questions right now. To me, they seem relatively easy. And I mean, and it may turn out that one of them is a no and the others are yes or whatever. And that's fine. But I kind of feel like if we want to get to what I think are actually more important questions, it'd be nice to just take these off the table and then move to the council questions. So maybe one of the questions that we want to think about right now in this meeting is, how many questions do we think we can address in November? How many things do we want to have on the table? Because I feel like the councils themselves have a lot more that we need to talk about than the conferences. Anyway, my thoughts.
Karen, you're first. Go for it.
Sorry, other people could say you just get your hand up, but I'm just going. I feel like the difference is, yes, it's 2 months since you talked about it, but it's not really an official conference. And I think it goes back to what somebody was saying earlier. I can't remember who said it, but these type of votes, according to the way I read the Revelation, need to be happening at a conference and not on a, yes, your conference is going to be a Zoom, but it's been called as a conference with Stephanie's involvement as the Lord instructed. And that's just different than what this is. And so I just feel like when we are voting on things, it really does need to be limited to the way the Lord expressed it. And that there's no problem with waiting. There's no harm in waiting another 4 months. And I think, or whatever it is. But I think that if we give ourselves enough discussion time, I mean, like just keep doing these Zooms every month. People can opt not to do it. Then they can't complain. If the offering's been there and they didn't participate, they have nothing to complain about. So they could come to November and complain and throw a stink and say, oh, I didn't get to, that's their choice. There is enough time. We are discussing it. And I think Michelle put over there in this slide, she'd like to start talking about whether or not to define home fellowship and all these things. I think there's a lot. I think even the question that you've posed are they can all be covered in that time frame. I think we've spent a year evaluating. And if we don't get through everything in November, we get through what we get through. And if it says, okay, then we're going to reconvene in 6 months and finish the rest of the questions, then we do that. I just think we just got to keep reminding ourselves the not to act in haste concept. And it's okay if this takes multiple conferences to resolve all the questions, and to feel that a matter has been discussed sufficiently that people are prepared to make the vote. Because probably, if we were to do this properly, it might even be that we ask the question first, do we all first vote that we have had sufficient discussion on said topic? Let's just say let's say home fellowship. Does the body believe we have had sufficient discussion on home fellowship to move forward with a vote? And first you might take a vote on that to see if the majority agree that enough discussion has been held. And if it's a majority, then you move on to discussion. Maybe that's something to consider, Cammie. I don't know, but I just don't feel like the fact that it's been, seems like simple questions to us is a reason to push it forward before the conference.
Thank you, Karen. We have Heidi next.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with Karen. I think these questions may seem simple, but I think there's a great deal of nuance to them. And I really feel strongly that for our votes to be valid on these matters, that those votes need to take place during the actual conference proceedings. Whether it's a virtual conference or an in-person conference, I think either way, it needs to be indisputable that the vote was part of the official conference. I think holding it ahead of time potentially invites opportunities for disputes on that front. If, for example, somebody wanted to dispute another council and we had voted at the end of June that actually you can't hold a conference to overturn a council, if they can argue that the vote itself wasn't valid, then they'll move forward with their conference either way. So I think we provide a lot more clarity and prevent opportunities for dispute when we choose to hold all the votes, however simple or complex we think they are, within the actual conference. And then on a separate note, just something that I've been thinking about as I've heard people pushing for us to establish new definitions and new parameters, and there's Stephanie's document, of course. Personally, I'm not in favor of adding anything to what the Lord has given us, but I think it's important to consider if the majority does vote in favor of adding things to our council instructions, we need to talk about what does this mean for councils that have already taken place. I know there's been mention of ex post facto, of course, in light of the April 12th conference, and I think that's valid here. What are we going to decide then as women about councils that had previously taken place? Can there still be disputes or conferences over that? Can we hold previous councils to these new standards that we set if we choose to set them? So I think that would be an important thing to explicitly discuss during the conference if the body does vote to add anything additional to our instructions.
Thank you, Heidi. We have Sky next.
So okay, let me back up a little bit. And I don't mean to be offensive when asking this question. But I have not come across anything that has come from the Lord that says we can call councils to set standards in moving forward. In the June 20th revelation, where the Lord instructs Denver what to do as far as a dispute of women's council, that a women's conference can be called. And that's what I understood the women's conference role to be about, was to call into question any women's councils. So if this is calling a conference to take a vote as people proceed as far as the document in November, or if we even are going to give conferences the binding ability to vote and say whether a council was acting in God's way or not, or if there should be another council or women's council against a man, that makes sense to me. But it doesn't make sense to me where we're pulling the information from that we can just create conferences, cast a vote, and now everyone is bound by what we just called a conference and a vote on. Where is that coming from?
Thank you. Go ahead, Cami.
Yeah, I kind of hate to ask this question, but and it's not a direct response to Sky. My question is, what constitutes a conference? Because I'm hearing different things. So what do we think constitutes a conference?
Well, I don't think it matters what constitutes a conference. I think what matters is what was the Lord explaining when he said for the women to call a women's conference to discuss a women's council that has been disputed. That makes sense to me, but anyone can call a conference for anything, and that could be a conference, but that does not mean that they now have authority from the Lord to start putting things up for vote. And now because someone called a conference and people are now voting on it, now that's binding to everyone. This conference, from what I'm understanding, has nothing to do with a women's council that took place or that was in dispute. This is a conference, if I'm understanding correctly. If I'm not, please correct me. But this conference right now is trying to set a precedent for the remnant and make that binding based off of questions that are being voted on. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, I am not raising my hand, and I think we had like a split decision of whether you could we could interject or not. So I think I get what you're asking, and I think that's part of what we do have to talk about, because it's how people are interpreting the revelation is exactly what you're saying from what I'm understanding. And sorry, I'll put on my video so that you can see me. But when you look at it says there have been disputes among the women about the conduct of women's councils and disputes about how they are to proceed. So really what we're getting to is to me, it's not about calling into question a specific council, which that's part of the debate is, was it or was it not okay? It's more about how are we going to proceed, because there's debate and discussion. So therefore there is discussion and decisions to be made. Some are advocating that because there is dispute, that therefore that means we need to get more definitive in, and to me, like Stephanie's document is just laying out, like I've said in emails, Women's Handbook of Instructions, because there was an issue, therefore let's resolve it by coming up with more guidelines. And then I'm saying, well, no, I don't think that. I think we just need to clarify and have a discussion about what the challenges are, why the Lord would leave things ambiguous, learn from each other's experiences. And you can still vote to leave it exactly as the Lord said it after you've had a robust discussion about, that's kind of what I'm advocating. But to me, when I read it, I don't see that it says necessarily that later on, sorry, I'm reading it right now. It says, let the women call a conference at a suitable time and place convenient to allow all interested women to attend, have Stephanie conduct, and the women speak, and let any who want speak to present their concerns. Reason together and draw upon the experiences from those past women's councils.
Which is what we did, and we
Yeah.
voted to go back to it in November. So if that
Right.
vote was binding, then we wouldn't be going back to this and actually casting a vote until November, which I agree we should be having discussions about it. But if we're trying to create rules now, that would be going against what we voted for last November.
Right, right. And then it says, let the women learn to come to agreement, and the voice of the conference decides all matters raised. So I don't think it's just like, oh, somebody is upset with how a council outcome or what happened at the conference, and that's the only reason why we can call it conference. I think that it can be anything regarding all this, any misunderstandings, any confusion. You can come and discuss so that we have clarity and that we feel like we're operating from a like-minded understanding. And then the debate and the discussion can be, and therefore then is the consequence of that more rules? Or was the consequence that we learned from the discussion and then we walk away leaving the Lord's guidelines as they are and allowing people to govern themselves with correct principles, which is what I've been advocating for a long time, but I don't have any problem with the discussion.
Yeah,
So-
I think the discussion would be great. And I think that it would be wise of us to be having these discussions in an organized manner to prepare our minds before November, because these are big questions and we have a lot of information to sift through. And if we could get to the bare minimum of what we've received from the Lord and go from there without making assumptions, and then even if we don't have clarity on that, maybe we could pray and ask for more guidance, and there could be more given. I'm open to all of that, and I hope I'm not making anyone feel called out or put on the spot or anything. I'm just trying to understand the thought process behind this. But I do feel that trying to make a vote with these many women, with so many people that aren't even aware of what's going on, and then also making conclusions of what the best decision would be in November, and trying to sell people or convince people of that. I also feel like that's premature. I feel like it would be really beneficial to all of us to slow down and try and reason with one another and understand some of these nuances. And I imagine that as we do that, we'll gain more clarity on some of these issues. But I imagine it's going to take quite a bit of discussion with other people.
You know, I'm going to say one more thing that people aren't going to like, but you have a great point. But do you remember when the Constitution first came into being, you couldn't vote unless you were a property owner? And the reason why is because property owners had a vested interest in the vote. It's a lot different than the way we vote now, and there's a reason, and it was actually quite wise. And you know, if I had the Lord didn't say this, so it's a stupid thought, but as I was listening to you speak, and I wish in some ways that you couldn't vote unless you'd been on a women's council, because until people have been on a women's council, it's kind of the same kind of idea of like the property owner. You don't really understand. You can sit and listen to women and talk about how difficult and challenges and what the reasons and so forth. But boy, there is a lot to be said about experience. And so I hope that as we go forward in discussing, I liked how Wendy had set things up at those tables where she had at least one person at the table who had been on one, but there really is nothing like the teacher of experience. And I'm afraid that in some ways, I mean, I just hope that the women that have not been on one will truly listen without judgment going forward to the women that have been on them, because there's nothing quite like experience. That wasn't really a direct that wasn't a direct comment to you, Sky. That was just as you were talking, that popped into my mind of how important experience is and what we've got going forward ahead of us.
I agree. Experience is very beneficial. And I personally haven't been on a women's council yet, but I have heard different views from different women who have been on women's councils, who have opposing views. And so just because someone has been on a women's council doesn't necessarily mean they're going to see things the same way. And different circumstances have different needs arise, that it wouldn't be appropriate to do something in one instance that it would be in another. And I am also aware of that too. But there are also some, in my mind, obvious protocols maybe that align with the spirit of the law, just trying to be a fair person, of extending the invitation to everyone who would be interested, rather than just having a small amount of people, or maybe people that you already understand or believe have your same opinion. People even have differences of opinions on what the council is for. Some people think it's to share an experience they had, feelings they had, hardships they had, and people are going to decide if that's reason to take the certificate away. And some people view it as a meeting to try and get evidence and try and get to the matter clearly on if their perspective was even accurate. And one of the comments that the Lord made on the June 20th revelation, so he says, it is not wise for the women to be commanded in every particular, which I 100% agree. But then he immediately follows up with, but it is also not wise for the direction I have given to be used to achieve a predetermined outcome. The outcome should be based on and a result of what is learned in the council, which in my mind tells me that we should be looking for evidence and challenging our own perspectives in the council. And I would carry that over to conferences also.
Okay.
I do think.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Let me finish my thought. What are my minutes at?
I think the timer might not be running right now. Oh, it is. Okay.
It says a minute.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
So because there was so much back and forth, I kind of let the timer go. So, but there's people with their hands raised, so we'll do a minute to finish up.
Okay. So I do think it would be, it does seem as though the Lord and Denver, especially in his last talk where he's talking about his high school debate team and people spending a year trying to understand other people's sides so they can approach the matter clearly. I think if we skip that step, we're really depriving ourselves of gaining more insight onto these matters.
Thank you both for your comments. Okay, so we do have a lineup. So I think we should probably go by hands for now. So I believe Emma Lynn was actually first. Is that okay if she goes first, Cammie?
I had a quick...
Cammie can go first.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm taking what you guys say. So if we could maybe do more answers, because I'm hearing a lot of questions. It would be nice if we did this, it would be nice if we did that. Okay, but how do we do that? So you guys tell me, how do we, what are conferences? If this vote is outside a conference, but the fall vote is not, how are those structured? So yeah, maybe just move toward answering some of these questions that we have. That's all.
Thanks, Cammie. So Emmeline, you don't have to answer that, but that's great if everyone wants to think about that and then respond. Raise your hand when you're ready. Or are we liking the open mic thing? You can leave your comments in the chat if you want to respond about that. since we've kind of given it a little try. And now we'll go to Emily.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'm not prepared to answer the question of what constitutes a conference. I think that's a great question, though, and we should talk about that. I just wanted to share a couple of my thoughts. I agree with Karen's point earlier that she made about not voting on the outcomes of a council, but voting on how councils should be done, like moving forward and studying what the Lord has given us, not superseding the power that a council has. So a council, in my mind, is a higher power than a conference because a women's council has to vote unanimously. It's a 100% all-in kind of decision after those certain women have heard certain sides, witnesses, testimony, evidence. They're getting all of that information at once with each other and are able to discuss. I think that's much different than a conference, and what the Lord has kind of directed about conference voting, the 51%. I think that automatically means that a 51% conference vote can't overturn a 100% unanimous vote of a council. Now, I might be misinterpreting that, but I would question certain votes at all. Like what kinds of things are we voting on? Should we vote on that? Is what we're voting on is the practice of voting on something that the Lord has given us? Is that us automatically adding or subtracting from what the Lord has told us? And I'm hesitant in general to clarify anything that the Lord has purposefully left ambiguous.
Thank you, Emmeline. Alrighty. It looks like there's no more hands raised right now, so I just had a comment to make just about the Zooms. So a lot of people have expressed they would like more discussion. I'm happy to host these Zooms. Sorry, I saw something in the chat and I should not look at that because it makes me distracted. I am very happy to host these Zoom meetings every month as long as you want to. And we had asked in the first April 29th meeting how frequently people would like them, and they said monthly, so that's what we've been doing. If there's a time where you want them more often, we can talk about that. I love the opportunity to discuss with you all and learn from your perspectives. I really appreciate each of you being here and sharing tonight, and so thank you all for all of your thoughts. And so maybe to kind of go off of what Cami was saying with more answers, she's kind of asking, how do we go forward from here? And so I would say the same question. How do we go forward from here? A lot of people expressing they would like more discussion. So just throwing some ideas out there. Maybe we could set aside Zoom meetings for specific topics. Like, okay, in this Zoom meeting, we're talking about women's council procedure because some people have brought that up. Or whatever it is. I don't know what really everyone wants to discuss, but I am really happy to have a space where everyone can share their concerns and we can discuss these things. Right now, like this Zoom meeting was the first one that's kind of mostly about this end of June vote. And so that's where we're focused tonight. But if we decide, or however this plays out, I'm not speaking well, sorry, I'm really scatterbrained. But if we decide that we want to not have the June vote, or we go through with the June vote, but either way, I imagine there's still people who really want to discuss. I would love it if you could tell me how you want these Zoom meetings to go. Do you want to pick topics beforehand? And what do you want to get out of these? That's just a question I have, sorry, I'm being so long-winded. Let's go to somebody else. Okay, I think we have Lisa first and then Amy after.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, great. Um, so I live in Washington State, so I'm far away from a lot of the conferences. I actually didn't even know about the November conference um, until the April conference. And even that, I probably wouldn't have known everything that went on unless I felt inspired to attend. And I had no idea what I was getting into when I did that. Um, so the question, what constitutes a conference, I think is one, first of all, that everybody knows about, and there's plenty of warning, and everybody can attend. So the June conference, as far as I know, or the June votes, as far as I know, that hasn't really been publicized, like on the event pages or anything like that. I don't, if I hadn't been involved, gotten involved in these the email threads and stuff after the April conference, I wouldn't know about it, because I generally get information from Denver Snuffers blog and occasionally maybe going onto the event page. So that is what I would think would constitute a conference. Those things. So plenty of warning, announced in space where everybody knows it's going to happen, and everybody can attend and participate who can. And I thought there was, the Zoom meetings. Because of my own fault, I haven't been able to attend the last couple. I really wanted to, and it just slipped my mind. But I would appreciate continuing these monthly discussions. I don't know, I don't often participate, but I'm definitely listening, and I appreciate everybody's input, because, well, I'm thinking about it even if I'm not saying much. So I don't know about topics. Maybe you could post on the email groups and get input for that. But I am also concerned about having the vote on June, because I don't know that there's a lot of people who know about it.
Thank you, Lisa. I feel so bad. I skipped Connie, and so Connie, feel free to go whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was just trying to go back and look at the first question that we're voting on. I didn't have a good feeling about that. I feel like that was already dealt with in April. And second thing is that I don't remember seeing a women's conference in November. Is that somewhere that I can find? Is it on YouTube? Where do I look?
Are you saying to watch the recordings from last November?
Yes, because I was in the hospital several times in November, so I clearly missed it.
Oh, for sure. I will post that link in the chat right now.
Hopefully I can find it again. I was going back to try to find the questions that we're voting on, and the first one is like, didn't we just deal with that in April? I don't know. Maybe I'm just out of it. And the last thing I wanted to say is, I don't think I can ever travel again. And that is very frustrating to me. I've gone to a couple of retreats in Chalice, and it was wonderful. I got to sing. But I just don't see that I can really ever travel again. And so I hope that we're going to have a way to vote, like through Zoom or something, because I really do want to be included. But the last 2 times I went to Chalice, I just wound up so crippled, especially the last time. It just wasn't worth it. So I'm not trying to complain. I'm just saying I'm being real here. So I'm done.
Thank you, Connie.
Maybe someone can answer the question about, didn't we just already vote basically on that, on the first question of the 4 questions that we're voting on in April? Am I wrong?
Thank you, Connie. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you aren't able to make it to these in-person conferences. I'm really grateful you're here tonight.
Thank you. It is frustrating, but go on. I'm done. I'm very shy, believe it or not.
Lisa, by the way, is your hand still raised for another comment?
No, sorry, I'll put that down.
You're just fine. One other thought, I meant to mention this earlier. So, people have also been saying they're hoping that more women will be able to hear about these events. And yeah, I'm not sure the best way to communicate what's going on. I'm on the emails and the Slack, but I just don't have a great reach. And so if you would like to invite anyone to come to these meetings, if you want to talk about it with people you know, absolutely feel welcome to. Everyone is invited to attend these meetings. And yeah, I hope that everyone has a chance to discuss if they would like to. Cami, go ahead.
Yeah, as far as reach goes, I posted it in the chat, but I'm not sure who saw that or knew what it was supposed to be for. But this is on the Covenant Christian Events site. So the events site. It took longer than I expected to get it to be put on the site, but it is listed, so it's on the official docket. As far as Denver's blog goes, I sent it to Stephanie as well, and my understanding is they were out of town or something, and so it hasn't been posted. I haven't received any emails back. I mean, it would be great if it were posted there, but it has been posted since the beginning. I mean, since the end of the April 12th conference. I've been posting it in the email and the Slack groups. So and I've been telling people to talk about it. So, I mean, as much as I'm able to, I've gotten the word out. I mean, I agree. It's hard to get the word out. There's a lot of people who probably still don't know. So everyone do your part. Everybody spread the word. Because there's probably lists I'm not on that would help. But as much as I've been able to have gotten the word out, I know Allie has too. So it is a problem. I'm not sure what the solution to that is, but I agree. I think we need to have everybody that can be involved. And that's part of the reason I chose to do it this way. Because of the traveling, and by the way, I gave a week for people to vote on both of them, which is another thing. I think people are expecting like a Zoom call that we vote at the end of. And if we want to do it that way, we can do it that way. But I put a week for voting on both of these so that people who are out of town, who don't feel settled yet, need some time to pray about it, whatever, have some time to do that. I mean, there's a whole week. And like I said, for this one, I went ahead and opened it early if people want to do that in advance. Although if we decide we're going to postpone, that means I've got to change what's on the event site too. But yeah, I'm making this as available as possible, but that's part of why I keep asking what constitutes a conference, because if this vote is outside the conference, does that mean the conference is that we're counting the conference as the week of November? Do we need to have a specific Zoom conference that constitutes the conference? Because in my mind, all of these meetings are the conference. Everybody's able to get to them. Everybody's able to vote. This is the conference in my mind. We're in it now. But I'm open to your thoughts. So what do you guys think?
Thanks, Cami. Karen, go ahead.
I absolutely think that the conference needs to be a certain date. It's a set date and you vote that date. And this is all lead up to the conference. This is all the opportunity for people to dialogue, learn. They can watch the Zooms at their convenience if they're not able to attend in person. So I think there's the build up, the lead up, the preparation, the discussion, and then a conference date where there is voting, and then like I said earlier, maybe even, I think we just have to really learn to be flexible, and maybe it even comes that only some of the items are voted on that were originally on the agenda of what was anticipated would be voted on. But that the voting is that day, and if you're offering it by Zoom, that there's some sort of way, I don't know enough about logistics with technical things or whatever, but there have to be some sort of a way where people's vote is registered at that time, in the process. And I think there's enough women on here who have the skill set to be able to know how to do that. But I don't think that you need to have a week-long vote. Like if you have enough advance notice, either you're going to participate in the conference, in the Zoom while it's happening or not. And that's probably it's just an opinion.
Thanks, Karen. Cami, did you want to say another thing?
Well, I did forget to leave my hand up, but yeah, I do. So, okay, if we're gonna go with that, first of all, we still have the ability to do polls on here, right? Because I think what we need to do is take a poll and first of all decide if we are going to postpone. Because if we're going to postpone, I got to know right now because I've got to undo some stuff that's been done. And then we also need a date. If we're going to have it be a date, which date are we having? Because remember, November is Thanksgiving and people are going to be out of town and all that kind of stuff, which is part of the reason I picked the week before, well, kind of a middle of the month week for voting is so that if people are traveling and whatnot, and I don't know, there's probably other stuff going on then, but which date do we want to do it? So can we do polls? I don't know if that's 2 polls or what, but can we do some polls and find out? Because if I don't want it just to be the most vocal people who carry the vote, as it were. But yeah, what do we want to do?
Amy, would you be open to doing a poll for us?
Yep, I'm creating it right now. So I've got the first question, should we postpone the upcoming June vote? And then do you want to have a second question as a follow-up or just wait until the results of that one come in?
I think maybe follow up if that works, just because it normally is like a quiet period when the vote is going on, if that's okay.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much, Amy.
All right, I will launch it in just a second. Okay.
Go for it, Emmeline.
I was just going to suggest to Cami. So I was just looking at the covenantchristianevents.com website just to see what the info was about the upcoming online votes. And I think just by looking at it, you wouldn't really know that there is active discussion going on. And sorry if you can hear my birds in the background and if they're distracting. So I was noticing there's no like information unless you actively click on it and kind of scroll down the website, and then you can kind of see one little rectangle saying Zoom meetings link with the next meeting date. I was wondering if that might be better if like to get people to know that these Zoom meetings are happening, to include the wording on the banner on the covenantchristiansevents.com saying Zoom meetings happening, or like discussion active now, or check for next Zoom meeting kind of thing, like just to let people know that these things are happening. Just a suggestion.
It would be nice also, to tell you the truth, like I had to text Lori today to say, hey, where do I find out about your conference? I'm on Restoration Archives. I'm looking at, I could not find for the life of me information I was trying to find today until I texted Lori, and then she told me about, oh, it's Covenant Christians. And she says it links from the old site, but I'm going, well, I couldn't find it. I could not find it until Lori told me. And so maybe we could reach out to Denver and say, hey, could you just say there are going to be a series of Zoom meetings that the women are holding? Because there's just a lot of people that don't know how to go to somewhere else to find the information. And there's probably somebody out there saying, yes, you're speaking for me right now. I didn't know, you know. I know that we have that, but like I say, I'm pretty involved. I just found out about that today. So if maybe we do decide, yeah, we're going to do these once a month Zoom meetings leading up to the conference, maybe Denver could post it and just say, there are going to be monthly meetings, and here's the link to the site and actual link to this new covenant, you know. Anyway, maybe other people aren't as incompetent as I am, but it would sure be helpful. And I think you'd get a much broader audience if we could get him to post.
Thanks, Karen. I can reach out and see if he'd be open to posting about the Zoom meetings.
And that might be after you pick a date. Like you could announce, hey, here's the date for the November Women's Conference. It is going to be a Zoom conference, and there are going to be Zoom meetings leading up to it. $20, you'll get a lot more participation.
Thanks, Karen. So I think on the recording of these Zoom meetings, I don't think you can see the results of the polls. So I'm just going to say them out loud. So this is I think it was 96% vote yes for postponing the June vote.
Okay, then the next question becomes when, right?
Okay.
Can I say something? I'm curious what the purpose was again of splitting up the conference into like two. Is it possible to have the discussion leading up to November and then the conference in November be the day or week? I like the idea of just having it be a day where all of the votes take place.
Yeah, so isn't that what we're trying to just pick is a day, right? Isn't that what you're asking, Cami? Am I confused?
Well, I'm confused, but yeah, I think that's what we're doing.
Maybe to help, why don't you throw out, you know, like November 1st, the 8th, the 15th. I don't know if Saturdays is the best or if Sundays. No, Sunday wouldn't be good because people but I don't know what you were thinking of. Were you thinking of a Saturday?
Who are you talking to?
You.
I had a whole week. I wasn't thinking of anything in particular.
Okay.
This is on you guys. I don't know what you
So
want.
when you were thinking of having the conference, when we talked about Stephanie's document, were you thinking of a day where we sat and talked about it? Or were you just thinking, in your mind, you were thinking all of these Zooms are the conference? Okay, I think I understand what you were thinking. You were
Yeah.
thinking all of these times that we get together and talk is our opportunity to discuss, and then you just get this week to vote and you come to a conclusion. And I think I don't know, maybe I'm incorrect, but in my mind, I think what a lot of us were probably thinking was, no, there's a day where we meet and it's perhaps all day, just like the November one was, 8 to 4, lots of discussion, lots of opportunity for any interested woman to speak, say what they want, further clear, and you would just maybe like one item at a time. Here's what we're going to talk about first, and you just go down and and so I'm thinking that might be what a lot of us were thinking was going to happen. Am I wrong? Anybody want to speak up? But that's what I would have thought was going to happen.
Okay, it looks like we have a couple comments. So you have Q and then Kalisa after Q.
Hi, so I'm just coming to this. I wasn't familiar with what was happening, so I'm really struggling to understand what the purpose is. I like back in November, the people that were there voted unanimously, if I remember correctly. But now it seems like we're overturning that unanimous vote to do something different. So I don't know, somebody please help me understand, what is this about? What are we voting about? I'm not too clear about that.
I can respond to that really quick, maybe. So I think the November conference, and maybe Cami will want to clarify this after me. So I think the initial intention of the November conference is just to vote again on Stephanie's document, because last November the vote concluded with, we'll try this out for a year, and then there was like this implication that we would vote the following November. That's my understanding. But then there are these other votes suggested that we've been talking about also tonight. Is that right, Cami?
That sounds like the gist of it, yeah.
Yeah, remember the document Stephanie did is a provisional document. It was a test and trial. And there was a lot of people that when we voted on, if you go look at the document, it says on it disputed. A lot of people said, well, I'm not okay with that. Okay. And so that's why it's sort of like on trial. And so the whole purpose is to come back together and then discuss as a group, what was the experience with the women, and now that you've had a year to ponder and think about it, of the things in the document. And then that would serve a beautiful purpose of being able to practice this discussion that the Lord kind of reprimanded us about in April, about being able to take these topics and actually discuss them more in length. So what we did unanimously in November, to my understanding, was vote on a trial period. We didn't vote and accept a document. We voted on a document to use for a trial. And even in it, if you go and look at the website or wherever it was, a person, if they did not agree with something that was on there, nobody was held accountable for not doing what was on that document in this trial period. So it's very much not a unanimously accepted to be our law document. It's a unanimously accepted to try it out and talk about it a year later. And that's what I think is trying to happen. And then the way I see it is that Cami and some of the other women felt like after this last April conference, then there were also new, some added things that I felt like Cami was suggesting that she wanted to vote. And so Q, when you weren't on here, we were discussing the pros and cons of those, and that we felt like we don't want to vote on any of those suggestions that she had outside of official conference. She was proposing to vote at the end of this month, and we're all just voted to say, no. We want to wait and not take any sort of votes on anything until we're in an official conference. And so we just all voted, 96% of us, to say no votes until an official conference. And now we were at the point of trying to decide, so what day would be good in November to hold this conference? I think, is that a fair summation, Cami?
Yeah, it sounds pretty accurate.
So really quick, since Stephanie has to be at the November conference, I wonder if she should be involved in planning the day rather than just us trying to decide.
Well, you can decide a date and then go to her and say, does this work? And if that didn't work, then you say, then you come up with say that didn't work.
Yeah, I just wonder if maybe if it doesn't work for her, it would be more efficient to have Cami ask Stephanie, then they can figure out a date, and then that's relayed to other people rather than we say, oh, let's do these dates, and then she gets to Stephanie and Stephanie says those don't work for me, And then we're spending our time trying to figure that out.
Okay, so, oh, go ahead, Q.
Hey, so I don't know if that timer is for me or what, but I still don't feel like my question was answered. I get that the document was approved and we're just gonna try it out and whatnot. Are you guys saying that what we're doing with this and what if this group here is just separate from that paper? And like what is the purpose of these meetings and this vote?
Great question. Yeah, that I definitely understand the confusion. It's definitely confusing. So the Zoom meetings are basically just something that I had held a Zoom meeting prior to the April 12th conference, and then a few people had asked if we could have more meetings to continue discussing. So these meetings are just like open-ended. They're not really about anything particularly. They're just a place for anyone to attend and discuss whatever's on their minds about women's conferences and women's councils, so that there is a place where we can reason together and have that discussion preliminary to any other future conferences. So it's just this ongoing monthly series of, hey, everyone is invited to come here and we can talk about whatever you want to. And then the conference is a separate thing. It's just that these meetings happen to be happening before the conference. So that's one thing we talk about a lot. I don't know if that gives any clarity.
I mean, I do remember you talking about that before the April 12th conference. I'm still just not sure, like, what is this voting? What are we voting on? Like, what is the purpose of that?
That's what we were just talking about this whole time, Q. We've spent this whole time trying to convince Cami, who is just doing her best to try to, organize something. And Cami, I just really am sensitive. I don't want you to feel like you're being attacked at all, please, because you've just, you're doing your best. But we've basically all said we feel like there shouldn't be a vote until there's an official conference, and that we just want these Zooms to be the forum wherein women can discuss the topics beforehand, because when you get to the conferences, it's very difficult for everyone to allow to be heard. And so if you can spend months in discussion, then you're able to afford people the opportunity. And what we were saying tonight was we don't feel like this Zoom opportunity is known enough yet. Like we need more women to know that it's happening so that everybody that wants can participate and voice. And I think what we were all saying, that we hoped going forward that we could maybe take different topics, like maybe next month we could talk about, hey, let's talk about in preparation for the November conference, let's talk about people's various ideas of what defines a home fellowship, or do we define it, or the differing views. So does that help answer at all, Q? Did that make more sense?
Yes, but I just want to clarify, I'm not attacking Cami. I'm sorry, I had a client that I just got out of session with, and so I am late to the game here, and so I'm just trying to find out what is the purpose, because you guys are asking us to vote, and I don't know what to vote on.
And I didn't want you to feel, no, we weren't accusing you of attacking. What I'm feeling like Cami came on wanting a vote, and pretty much 96% of us said we don't want to vote. And so I'm just saying, like, I was a person that got on at the very beginning and was saying, I want this vote to not happen. So I was more speaking for me, Q, on that. Sorry, that didn't make sense to you. I just feel bad because I feel a little bit like Cami's put her heart and soul into something, and we've all kind of in a way nixed it tonight. I don't know, Cami, I don't know if that's how you're feeling, Cami, but that's what I'm worried about.
Well, we are at square one again, so yeah.
So
I mean,
I didn't want you to feel attacked from me, is what I was concerned about. I wasn't feeling like you were attacking her, Q.
Can I just throw in there, a couple people have asked the same questions and I had to jump out because my phone froze and jump back in, and so I can't scroll up. But can we just restate what the questions were so people know what we were voting on? I think that's what some of the chat questions are asking. Oh, you just did that, Allie. Thank you.
No problem.
And then I do have some suggestions or maybe proposal, so to speak. I don't know what the procedures are for these meetings, but I have something to suggest if and when that's appropriate. So if you just want to let me know.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think Kalisa had a comment. So is it okay if we just go to her first?
Sure.
Thanks so much. Did you still want to comment, Kalisa?
Sure. That would be great. Thank you. I also had a couple of suggestions. So first of all, I wanted to say that something that I learned about the or with the April conference is that people feel not heard a lot of the time when people don't agree with their ideas. So I would suggest considering what does it mean to be heard. So that's the first thing I would suggest. The second thing I would suggest is it's really complex and complicated to try and get through any one of these concepts and ideas. It's incredibly challenging because there's so many different perspectives and a lot of them require a lot of depth of thought and time and consideration. So part of the reason why we did what we did in the April conference, where we didn't hold any votes except for very, very specific ones, was so that we didn't set precedent for anything else down the road. So when I look at the questions that were proposed to be voted on today, it's really concerning to me because it would be setting precedent for everybody. And in the November conference, there was close to 100 women that attended and voted. And in the April conference, there was 124 women who attended and voted. And there were many, many more who wanted to attend. And there were over 100 people at every Zoom call. So I think it's really good that we're waiting to vote, specifically because I guarantee there are so many women who have no idea that this is going on. I did not know this was happening. Q did not know this was happening. There's a ton of people who don't know what's going on. So I'm really grateful that the vote turned in the direction of waiting and postponing. So I guess my suggestions are, one, to consider what it means to be heard, and two, to consider organizing the way we're having these discussions to maybe center it on one topic at a time. I think that would be really, really helpful. There's one more thing. If it's important, it'll come back to me.
Thanks, Kalisa. I love those suggestions. You know, I would really love to hear anyone's feedback on what they would like that topic to be. So if anyone wants to chime in, feel free. And also maybe just if something comes up, feel free to send it in the chat and I'll take note of those. And maybe we can have a vote in before the next meeting to decide when the next meeting will be and what topic we'll want to talk about, if that's what people are interested in. Okay, now we're going to go to Sky and then Marlene after Sky.
So I wish I was more tech savvy and I could send you guys these documents that I made so you could read along with them. Does anyone have a suggestion for that? I'm on my phone, but I could get on my computer, which is where I have the document saved. Or is there an easier way for me to send it to the chat? Or I can send it afterwards. I can just read it to you. I kind of wanted to go over what I was suggesting and explain some of my reasoning behind it. So I can read them now and then maybe on the Slack group or whatever, post the documents, and people can do whatever they want with them. Maybe some things will resonate and others won't, and maybe people don't care or they want to pick it apart. I don't really care. I just had put some things together. I worked on one of these with a few people for quite some time. So anyway, is there a way I can easily post it right now so you can read along, or can you tell me where I can post it so you guys have access to the documents later?
So Sky, I can help you with that. If you post in the Slack group right now, I will share my screen, and then I will also pin the documents so that they don't get lost in the 90 days feed.
Okay, so I am in the Slack. So I need to post it in the Zooms for Reasoning channel. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to do that. It's in Google Drive. I used to always work in Microsoft, but now I'm trying to use Google.
While you pull that up, do you mind if we go to Marlene and then return to you? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome, thanks.
I really like what Kalisa said about maybe taking the time to go through some of these things one at a time. And I just have a suggestion, and you guys can jump in and tweak this a little if it's not exactly how you would like it to be. But I know before the Eclipse conference, April 8th, 2024, we had 10 different Zooms with all kinds of different people leading. And they were about an hour and a half long. Some were Sunday nights, some were Monday nights, to allow for everyone who wished to at least have a chance to attend, which, you know, if Sundays were better or Mondays were better or both were fine. And I would love to see one Zoom in July and August, because we're all so busy in the summer. But I wouldn't mind having, you know, 6 to 10 specific Zooms each week, and you can let us know through Denver's website what the topic is that week. So if it's something of interest to us, or we have something important that we'd like to share that might help the group, we could do that. And that way we're kind of laser focused each week on one specific topic, and we can come prepared. I just think we'll be more successful that way. And then if we lead up to having a conference in early November, whenever that day is chosen and works for Stephanie, I think we'll all come more prepared, our hearts and our minds. And I think it will be such a better experience. And I think we're learning as we go. So thank you.
Thanks, Marlene. It looks like Cami has her hand raised also. Sky, are you ready, or should we go to Cami?
Go to Cami.
Okay, go for it, Cami.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to have both of the announcements taken off of the website, the Covenant Christian website, because neither of them apply at this point. So I will wait until a date is chosen, and then we'll try again for the November conference. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, I'm almost ready. I'll read these, or well, actually, I'm not ready. I want people to be able to read along because I feel like it's easier, especially when Karen mentioned that she's visual. So I'm almost done.
Okay, while you're getting that ready, Cami, I really just want to say thank you. I'm sorry because I know this has gotten just so crazy, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and I'm so grateful that you're taking into account our thoughts here. It's really kind, and I am very grateful. So I just want to say that.
Okay, so I just posted the parliamentary procedures on the Daughters of the Covenant Slack group. And I'm going to post an agenda that I would like to work on and participate in. If no one else wants to do it to that format, I don't mind. And if other people want to create their own groups and do what they will with it, I also don't mind. This is just information that I'm sharing. Okay, so the first is called Parliamentary Procedures. So it's on the Slack group. So will someone let me know if they'd like me to wait for them to pull it up? Oh, you have it.
We can see it. Is that what you're asking? Is can we see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
See it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna read through it. And they're just, I imagine it kind of like traffic laws, not to govern anyone or tell people what to do, just kind of how to organize discussion. So people have the opportunity to speak and share, and then also spaces. If people get ideas and want to work on things, they can work together. If they want to jump back to the main group, they can. If they want to splinter off, people have the freedom to do whatever they want. But the purpose of it is a vehicle of communication and dialogue, giving all members equal opportunities, rights, privileges, and obligations. 2, to facilitate the opportunity to execute communal commandments in a united manner with those interested in participating. 3, provide unification through voting or mutual agreement. And that depends on whoever is using this for whatever purpose they want. I'm not advocating for one or the other. Sometimes the Lord asks us to have mutual agreement. Sometimes we want to achieve mutual agreement. Sometimes the standard is for voting. So that's why it's either or. Of higher refined levels of definitions, not to be a governing entity, not to impose anything on anyone. 4, facilitate the opportunity to execute ideas or goals shared among individuals interested in participating. 5, prepare and practice being an orderly community with equality and peace within its members. 6, seek to find and understand truth in matters, being open to discovering errors and correcting ourselves. 7, create a space, either in person, online meetings, threads, websites, whatever people want to do, to address or deliberate each motion. That's the purposes behind it. The procedures. The first procedure is to elect 2 moderators by nomination and common consent. The reason why there's 2, because we played around and experimented with this, is sometimes a moderator would also like to comment. And so when they jump into comment, and the second moderator is appointed, so they can moderate while the first moderator is commenting. So moderators will remain impartial while acting as moderator, and the role of moderator is open to new elections with each subsequent meeting. B, the first moderator elected is the primary moderator, and the role of the primary moderator always defaults to him or her unless in the action of contributing to group discussion. In that event, the role of moderator shifts to the secondary moderator, the second person elected to the position of moderator. But at the conclusion of his or her contribution, the role shifts automatically back to the first moderator elected. C, if moderators have been appointed, a member must obtain the floor by being recognized by the moderator, which is great for me because I always interrupt people and I try really hard not to. 2, all members are invited to make a motion. A motion must be seconded by another member before it can be considered. The reason why it needs to be seconded is so one person can't just obligate everyone to listen and follow their ideas if no one else is interested. B, the main motion is deliberated along with any secondary motions within the time frame of the meeting. C, the maker of a motion has the right to speak first in a deliberation. D, deliberation must address issues, not personalities. 3, every meeting will follow an agenda. A, all members are invited to add a topic or motion to the agenda to be considered at meetings, including items that have been previously removed. B, agenda items are addressed in chronological order unless it is unanimously agreed to do otherwise by those present in a meeting. Any agenda items not addressed in a meeting are automatically added to the agenda or the next meeting in the order that they were submitted. 4, all members may make a motion to halt discussion on an agenda item. A, the member's motion must be seconded to halt the discussion. B, if a minimum of 51% majority is in favor of halting discussion, that item is removed from the agenda for time being and discussion is moved to the next item on the agenda, I'll get to that. A previously halted agenda item may be added back to the agenda if the motion is seconded by another member. 5, a vote for and against a motion will be taken. That's if
or well, that goes with mutual agreement, I guess, too. A, silence gives consent or an unwillingness to oppose. B, members have a right to know what the pending question is and have it restated before a vote is taken. C, before a vote is taken on a written motion, it may be amended by striking out words, inserting or adding words, substituting one paragraph or resolution for another. 6, if mutual agreement is not achieved within the whole group, then those who are interested in continuing the idea can create a subgroup and schedule a separate time for further discussion. A, the subgroup will not replace the main group or scheduled meetings. B, no one member can prevent other members from creating or participating in any public groups, motions, deliberations, projects, or spaces they are inclined to. It kind of seems really specific, and it is. And if anyone's interested, great. If they're not, that's great too. And the Women's Council, Women's Conference County, blah, blah, blah. The Women's Conference Council meeting agenda, which I put together by myself. And if no one is interested in participating in this, that's okay. It won't hurt my feelings. I'm going to participate in this with the structure that I've put on here, because it's important for me to first pull the information that we've received from the Lord before I start making decisions based off of conclusions that maybe were inaccurate. So Women's Council Conference agenda, pull instructions from the Lord into one place in regards to, and I've pulled.
Just one sec, sorry. I do think your 5 minutes are up and we're getting close to 8. I don't know if people are wanting to stop at 8 tonight. So if maybe you could just wrap it up in like 10 more seconds, is that okay?
I have 7 more lines to read. It might be about a minute and a half. Do you think that's okay?
Is that one sent through the Slack?
Yeah. So if people want to just read it, they can.
Do you think maybe we could do discussion on there instead so we could wrap the meeting up? I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fine. And if anyone is interested in participating with me on this agenda, then they can reach out to me. If not, that's okay too. I have created a Gmail account and I'm putting references and sources so it's easily accessible and findable, so we can go to the actual document and pick it apart together. So, yep, that's it.
Thanks for sharing. And if you'd like to share any links in the chat to get in contact with you and things, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Do you want to have do you have a comment, Kalisa?
I do. Guys, that was spectacular. I 100% would love to participate in discussing these kinds of things with you in that fashion. I know that took an insane amount of work. So I want to applaud you because that was amazing. Love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was a lot of work. It was a couple years with a few different people working on that. So I appreciate it.
Wow, you can totally tell. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I will put my email in the chat, and if anyone wants to reach out, they can, and I'll also put it in the Slack group.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so it looks like you guys can, if you have a comment, let me know. It looks like maybe your hands are still raised. So we have a few more minutes left. I was thinking the previous meetings, we've just done 2 hours. So I was thinking we'd probably close at 8. Is that what people are wanting, or do they want to go a little longer? Do you feel like you want to discuss more tonight? We could throw that out there really quick and maybe just send 8 in the chat or send like 8:30 or whatever you guys think. 8, we have 1 8. Okay, it looks like 8. So 5 more minutes. Any last comments? I definitely would love to throw out there. Is there one topic that people really want to focus on for the next meeting? And then one really important question I have, because it seems like some people maybe aren't in the email group in the Slack. So I don't know how to get in touch with everybody to let them know about the future meeting. So we'll need to plan a date for next month's meeting. If there are people who aren't in the groups, please let me know how I can get in touch with them. And yeah, you can text me, email me probably. I'll send my email in the chat really quick. So if anyone wants to pipe in for one last thought, say what topic they'd like to talk about next week or something else, go for it.
Are we just, so Cammie, are you reaching out to Stephanie then and gonna get a date and then let us know? Is that your plan?
Is that what you guys want?
I think so. I think that's kind of what we were all saying when we, to me, chime in, everybody, if this is not what you're thinking, but the way that I was reading it tonight was the 96% saying, okay, definitely we don't want any vote going on. We want it part of the conference. It sounded like instead of voting on a date that there was some strong feeling about talk to Stephanie privately first. I think you said you've already been talking to her, right?
Right.
Right. So it's she's in communication with it. So you've got the approval from her to have a conference. She knows you're doing it. So
Yeah.
just get a hold of her and see. I think we're all anticipating that November was a year from it. So I think that's great. And my guess would be people, for the most part, are going to appreciate being before Thanksgiving rather than between Thanksgiving and Christmas when we're all a little more swamped. And it seems like there's 3 possible Saturdays or something like that. So let us know. And yeah, that
So are you guys thinking of like a 2-hour Zoom meeting? Is that kind of what you want?
for the conference,
Yeah.
I would think it's going to be longer than that. We got a lot to talk about.
So what do you guys want? Are we doing an all day thing?
I would think you're at least a half a day, at least, and then I'm almost guarantee you we're not going to get very much voted on. You're going to just start nibbling a little piece of it, I would guess, because there's just Stephanie's document alone is 5 pages long, and the whole point is, from my understanding of the last November, was okay. Now we got to dissect that and say what do we agree with and what are we opposed to. So in my opinion, I think you're going to have a lot of discussion, and that's the kind of stuff we need to start discussing ahead of time to save discussion. I guess maybe I'll take that back. Maybe it depends upon how much gets talked about in these Zoom meetings, and like what Marlene suggested, maybe we do need to have like 10 of them or something. And you look at that document, and that right there is going to give you, in my opinion, the basis of what we're going to talk about, because that is what we agreed to come back and talk about, is that document. So I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out for your thoughts. I don't really have a set thing. It's just more of what I thought from my understanding of what we would be doing in November.
Right. I'm just not sure how to ask her to put aside time when we don't have any idea what that's going to look like.
Cammie, she already did it in last November for a whole day, and she did it in April for a whole day. I would venture to say if you told her it's going to probably take the day, and then you could work out the details as this is evolving. And if it was shorter, isn't that a miracle that it was shorter? But I don't know. I would just think with so much to discuss that probably people ought to just plan that it's going to be at least a half a day, if not an all day thing. But people voice up. Just because I'm saying this, don't say like, yeah, you say you disagree if you disagree. I'm just assuming from what I've seen happen so far.
Do you mind if we run to Emmeline really quick, just since we're nearing on 8, and then maybe everyone comment in the chat if you have more thoughts on that?
I just wanted to say that I agree with Stephanie's document being the topic of the next meeting. For as long as it takes like to go through it, like if the meeting is 2 hours long already and we haven't gotten through it, then we continue at the next meeting and so on. And then maybe once we're through with that, if we want to discuss the 4 questions that Cami has put up as options for voting, I think really good discussion can and should happen about those. I voiced in the chat that I'm not sure if any of those questions are anything that I would feel comfortable voting on as a body, as I do believe that the Lord has given us answers to them. So I do think healthy discussion and sharing of interpretations and ideas needs to happen about all 4 of those questions.
Thanks, Emmeline. Okay, thanks everybody for your thoughts. That was really awesome for me. I enjoyed hearing different people's opinions. So thank you for everyone who attended, especially people who haven't been to previous meetings. So it looks like a lot of people are saying, let's talk about Stephanie's document next time. So what do we think? Do we want to just take it page by page and just work our way chronologically? Or do we want to focus on like the disputed points? Do we want to just pick one particular point from that document and focus on that for the next meeting? It's after 8, so everyone feel free to jump off if you need to, or we can talk about this in the email group and the Slack. Yes, thank you, Cami, and thank you everyone for your participation. Okay, so we have 1 vote for beginning to end. It seems like we should probably just talk about this maybe off the meeting and let everybody go tonight. So we'll stay in touch on the email group and the Slack, and I'll try and figure out other ways to let people know these Zooms are going on. Thanks again, everybody. You're all awesome. I'm grateful to have spent my evening with you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Allie.
Bye,
You're
guys.